and welcome to all of you. It's really nice to be here in Delhi on a hot 45-degree Celsius morning. And I was here yesterday, and we were going from one meeting to another meeting, and just outside in the place where we were there, it was so hot, and the wind was just slapping your face. And it's not that I haven't stayed in Delhi. In fact, I used to live in Delhi for many years before I moved to Bangalore. So it just is something that I think I've gotten not used to over a period of time. So you guys all brave this heat, and it's great to be here, though. So I was thinking about this morning, and the mood doesn't seem to be that great because we had a petrol hike yesterday. 7 rupees and 50 paisa. How much is that? And how much is going to add to our fuel bills? And I was just reflecting back and thinking, in the last decade, we've had so much change in the entire, economy, in the world, whether it is political change or whether it is, how life is when we go for security checks at the airport anymore. Whether it is about price fluctuations. The price of petrol used to be how much? Maybe 30 rupees not too long ago, and today we are talking of 75 rupees. So it's been a lot of change, a lot of volatility in the entire environment, and I think it's got to do with a lot of, and this is my hypothesis, it's not anyone else's hypothesis. I think it's got a lot to do with the world coming together, and the world becoming more and more networked. The world becoming, information being available quickly, and information being available anytime that you want it, and people being able to take decisions quicker, move things quicker. Of course, it's got to do with scarcity of natural resources and terrorism and all those kinds of those things. But the fact that the information is becoming key in this entire networked world, I think that's an important point to look at, and that's, I think, what we'll focus on here. The world is really getting smaller. What used to take us days to find out takes us a few seconds and a few clicks. So you got to keep innovating, you got to keep moving as individuals, as organizations, and if you're not agile, you're going to kind of feel the heat sooner rather than later. So, earlier it was that, hey, you made a wrong decision. The impact would be, there maybe 6 months down the line, a year down the line. Now you make a decision, the impact of that happens that day, maybe the next day, maybe in that month. So it's moving very, very quickly. So the world is getting smaller. Two important trends that I want to highlight here. One is that population is rising. Population is rising. We have about 6 billion people in the world. And that in the next 20, 25 years is going to be, or even less than that, will be about 25% more. So 1.6 billion people will get added. And most of that growth is going to happen in the Asian region. So China, India, very big. In the rest of the Asian part, 90% will happen in the emerging, what we call the emerging economy. And it's not just people in the lower and middle income group that will go up. The number of billionaires that will get added or will develop in the world, a staggering number is in Asia. So there is a huge growth that is expected in this part of the world. And that's going to come because we will create new companies. We will, create more value. We will be networked and create and serve the rest of the needs in the world. And therefore, there's going to be a lot of investment. There's going to be a lot of work that needs to get done in this part of the world. That's one trend. The second is everything will get faster. The amount of information, as I said, is becoming more and more. What gets added in the next maybe year will be equivalent of what was there and added in the last maybe 10 years. And that kind of just goes on shrinking, and we get more and more information. So life is going to get a little more complex. But the growth, the good news for all of us is that there will be plenty of growth in this world. That's the good side. The challenge that we all have is how do how do we plan for this growth? How do we scale ourselves individually, and how do we scale ourselves collectively and in organizations to be able to meet this growth and stay on top of this growth and the demand that it's going to make on all of us. And that's really a big challenge, which I'll talk a little bit, but I think for the rest of the day and for the evening, we are going to continue talking about that. Just in 60 seconds, what happens? 1 minute. In the time it's going to take me to go through some portions of this slide, you would have had 700,000 search queries on Google. You would have had 600 new videos loaded on YouTube. You would have had 168 million emails sent. And you would have had 13,000 plus iPhone apps downloaded. And iPhone is only one portion, right? There are so many apps that are there on the other side on Android and so on. So I'm saying the numbers are staggering. And what this is leading to is a data explosion. And that is what we are going to talk about. It has a direct implication on storage, compute, IT, the entire environment that we are going to talk about. So this is huge, what is taking place around us. So here are the 3-4 trends that are there which are going to lead to computing challenges. Clearly, billions of endpoints and always connected. We all carry smartphones. I think all of us are, we are here. Some of us may be looking at smartphones, doing email or at least checking and seeing whether there's anything critical, anything important. That's an endpoint. Kids are having all these devices. We probably have iPads or we have tablets and so on. And they're always connected. 24/7, whether it's a holiday, whether it's an evening, so it's always there. Consumerization of corporate IT. And these devices find their way into the corporate world. So you have your personal device. You don't want a different environment in your home, and you don't want a different environment in your office. You want to carry that same thing with you, especially youngsters who come into the corporate world. They want to carry everything in there. So as IT folks, we are completely challenged because these devices come in. You don't know what kind of versions they are. You don't know what kind of devices are there. Broadly, yeah, of course, maybe it could be 2 or 3 different kinds of operating systems, but it could be multiple versions of that. And what they bring in with that is completely unknown. And now you've got to connect them to the corporate network. So this entire concept of bring your own device, which is becoming a huge, huge trend and a necessity almost for all of us, is going to cause us to rethink how we do applications, how we provision applications, and how we secure ourselves and our networks from anything which could be malware on these devices or potential attacks that could be there in your environment. So consumerization of corporate IT is very big. Gen Y, we already talked of. Gen Y is all these youngsters coming into the workforce, and they're not happy with stodgy desktops and laptops that we all give them in the corporate world. They want to have the fancy devices. And many times they take decisions on joining an organization or not joining an organization based on the IT environment that is there. And some of them even ask that question in the interview. So if you want really smart guys or smart people coming in, you need to have a good-looking IT or good feel IT environment. And they don't want to be bothered, okay, they put a command and then have to wait and wait and wait before getting a response. They really want a quick response. So I think these are all becoming important elements, which is all leading to data explosion here on that. So what's our approach to handling complexity? Really, very, very simple. Any new project that you do, any new thing that you do, first question to ask, is it necessary or is it unavoidable? Is it necessary or not necessary? If it is not necessary to do, if it's good to do, perhaps there's a different approach to handling it. If it is absolutely essential that you do it, it is aligned to the business priorities and business goals of the organization, then there's another way of handling it. So if it's not that critical for you to do it, just standardize it, rationalize it, automate it. You go into that kind of thing. So for example, there may be departmental applications that you might have had in the past. A project group may have created an application. And that project group would have, ever since then outlived its presence there. But the application is still there. And there may be 2.5 people in the organization who are using that application. But you are maintaining that application. And that may not necessarily be required for you. Because if there are 2 people using the application or very few people using the application, it probably is something that, doesn't justify the cost that you have. If it's an unavoidable expense, if you think that it's really required, then see whether it is strategic or non-strategic. If it is not strategic, and let me give you an example, email, absolutely essential. No organization can run without email. But, is it core to your business? Is it something that drives your business? It probably is something that is absolutely required and necessary for you doing the business, but it's not sufficient for success, right? So you need to look at that and see which are those applications. And again, if it's not strategic in nature, perhaps it's best outsourced. Perhaps it's best run in the cloud. Perhaps it's, done in a way in which it doesn't eat up your time or your precious resources. Because at the end of the day, you are the IT group within the organization, and you, more than anyone else, has a solid knowledge of that organization, the business imperatives in the organization, what your stakeholders, the business stakeholders, the finance stakeholders, the CEO are demanding of you. And you got to make sure that you create an IT environment which caters to that, rather than let your time be used up in all these activities which are standardized activities and which can technically be outsourced. So that's what I'm saying. Put your time, put your energy, put your money in those strategic areas where they are clearly linked to a business imperative. And one of course is saving cost, business imperative, but the other is growing revenue. And so if you can link your spends in that area, and if you can go to your business stakeholder and say, if I was to help you in analyzing your product in the social media, and that gives you a feedback by which you can tweak your product in a particular way, that will help you increase your revenue, improve your customer satisfaction. Do you think your business stakeholder is going to say no? He's going to say, yeah, I want to look at that. What does it mean for me? So anything that you can help them to improve customer satisfaction, anything that you can help them to do to increase their revenues in that space, I think that's where you want to put your money in. So just, what we did exactly like that in Dell, I just wanted to, mention that for our own IT, internal IT. So Dell is a large company. We are a $62 billion revenue organization. We used to spend, more than $1 billion in IT, on IT. And what we realized was that roughly 80% of that was going into just keeping the lights on, just keeping all the business applications running, keeping all the hardware going, the networks going. So even before the year starts, 80% of that $1 billion is already committed. We know where exactly it's going. And is it going to add any value? Yeah, perhaps it will, because you got to keep the lights on. But will it add incremental things? Will it add new stuff that we are going to do in the market? No. So what we did was we went back and did exactly the approach that I just outlined for you. Is it necessary? Not necessary. If it's necessary, then is it strategic? Not strategic. As a result of which, if you really look at the bottom left-hand corner, we had 8,000 applications. By simply asking these questions and pushing our business stakeholders there, that 8,000 applications went down to 2,200 applications today. So a huge reduction. And imagine when you get rid of 6,000 applications, the amount of money that you release, the amount of IT space that you release, the amount of focus that you get on your people managing applications. Suddenly, the entire IT organization, instead of managing 8,000 applications, is now managing 2,000 applications. So the focus on managing those applications and running those applications was far more. Like that, we did, we consolidated. We did a 30-to-1 server consolidation. We did a lot more virtual machines there, lower cost. As a result of which, we ended up saving $300 million every year. So $1 billion went down to 700. Now, who won't like that? Fantastic. And more importantly, that out of that $700 million that we were spending, 50% was going into keeping the lights on, and 50% was available for innovation. So not only did we end up reducing costs, we ended up spending more on innovation. So I think it's something that we've seen working, and I think it can really work for you as well. And what we've done since then is that we've actually got, in social media, since it's become so big, I just want to give you an example of how we are trying to innovate in that space. So we have a center in Austin, which is the social media listening command center. There is so much of chatter going on, and of course we are selling our products to corporates and we sell to consumers. So there is a lot of chatter that goes on about our products and our technologies, solutions, what's happening in the market, what's happening in the competitive world. So we have a social media listening center. And what that does is keeps monitoring these trends and keeps filtering them out and feeding them back to our product groups, feeding them back to our management. And we keep getting information like that, which helps us to tweak our decisions, tweak our product, and add more features to it, or do things which are far more relevant for customers. And in this entire thing about how you get to an efficient enterprise, how you get there matters a lot. It's not something that, hey, you've got a certain amount of IT that is going, and that IT is not good, and you just throw that thing out. You don't. You obviously add to it and move from it, but the approach matters a lot. And the approach is, I'll keep the old, but anything new that comes up, I will put in a new IT environment. I'll move it into the future, what I envision. So the first step is to have a plan in place and to see what the future you think will look like. And then slowly, newer applications coming in, or newer designs that you might want to do, or newer, when the old stuff comes up for either replacement or upgrades or updates, move them to the new environment. And that's what you do. So move them from closed environments to open environments, and that's Dell's philosophy. Have open, capable, and affordable systems. So that's really what we do. Absolutely open. You don't need to be stuck to Dell. If you don't like Dell, if we don't do a good job for you, you are free to move somewhere else. So we don't bind you in the technology. We don't bind you in any particular way. And then, capable, very good capabilities in that, and certainly very, very affordable. So that's been the philosophy of Dell, and we continue to work on that. And that, of course, leads to an efficient, agile, and resilient enterprise, and I can talk a little bit more about that. So in a broad way, for an efficient IT, there are 3 broad objectives we think you must have. One, clearly to empower your end users, because end users are the ones that ultimately are accessing your IT infrastructure. And they are the ones who are making use of whatever you dish out for them. So the more empowered they are, the more flexibility you give them, the more access they have in different ways, the better it is, because they are the ones who are making decisions for the organization moving forward. So empowering your end users is really critical, and anything that you can do to improve their productivity matters. Second, you run your IT more efficiently. You do a lot of focus on innovation and spending less on keeping the lights on versus anything. And the third thing is moving your entire IT towards business goals rather than purely technology goals. I think for a long time we have actually lived and done work around technology goals, and which is important. Technology has been complex, it continues to be complex, but I think now we have reached a stage of maturity where we can start focusing a lot more on the business side and business value. So it's like, in a car, we don't know what kind of technology is in the car. We don't really talk of the elements of the shock absorbers or the suspension there anymore. It's the driving experience which matters. Likewise in IT, it's the experience, the business experience, which really matters here. And there are 5 big things what this means for us in the IT world, for yourselves in the IT world. Virtualization, absolutely key. Look at your infrastructure, see whether you virtualized enough. Can you get more out of it? Because every rupee that you spend is a rupee additionally spent, and with cost pressures, especially given the fuel hikes and all the inflation that we are going to see here, you're going to see a lot more cost pressures coming in. So virtualization, absolutely key. Endpoints, convergence, and consumerization, we've talked about that. Very critical for you to see how to manage this and how to be ahead of the curve there. Data management, intelligent data management, and today is all about storage and intelligent data management. Very, very key. At the end of the day, if I was to step back and say, what's important for me? What's the core asset for me? The core asset for me, or any organization, when I say me, it's any organization, the core asset for me is the information and data and the IP that I have in the organization. It's not so much the compute. Compute is important, but it's a means to to the storage. It's the mean to the information that is there in storage. So how do I manage this data? How do I manage storage? How do I manage this over the life cycle? Is very, very critical and very important. And with the amount of data that's there and being generated on every single day, pretty soon the cost of this is going to balloon like hell. So you want to make sure that you have a strategy to be able to manage that. And of course, cloud. How much to keep inside your organization and how much to put outside the organization, and what kind of security systems you must have. So these are the 5 things that I would say are important. The last 2-3 slides here, just to talk a little bit about storage. I think which is what we are going to talk about the rest of the day. Today's storage very, very inefficient. I don't know what's the case in every organization. Perhaps you've been a little ahead of the curve and thought through a lot more on this, but it's a big portion of the budget. 17% of the budget, hardware budget, is storage. And you can basically see that it is quite inefficient at this point of time, and there is a lot of scope for A, reduction in cost, and B, managing the complexity that comes by adding more and more as the growth happens. It's a 50% growth every single year for the next few years in terms of petabytes that you need to add. So what's our point of view on storage? 3 broad things. Maximize efficiency. Absolutely look at the cost, and not just cost of owning, because I know that cost of acquisition is very important, but it's not just the cost of acquisition, but how to manage the cost of ownership that is important. So you might get, like I like to say, you might get an elephant at a very, very low cost, but you got to feed the elephant every day, and pretty soon you realize that it's really not so cheap to get that elephant. So it's really important for us to look at the overall cost and take important decisions now, which will help us to get there. So that's the data efficiency we are talking about. Agility, absolutely critical. We talked about right in the beginning about the amount of volatility that is there, have taken place in this world in the last 10 years, and it's only going to increase. It's not going to reduce. And if you have that kind of volatile environment, that kind of changing environment, you've got to be able to respond in a quick fashion, in an agile fashion. And you've got to build an infrastructure, you've got to build the underlying foundation of your organization in a way which allows you to change and be adaptable. And that's where I talk about, and we'll talk about the fluid data storage that we've got. And it's fluid by design. Fluid means, adaptable, changeable, and it's just like water, right? Fluid water. It can take the shape of any container you put it in, and it will take that shape with optimizing the space. It's just not going to leave any space behind there, right? So if it's the nook or cranny in a particular container, it'll make sure it gets there. You may or may not want it to get there, but it get there. So it manages itself automatically, and it adapts itself automatically. That's what is meant by fluid. And I think as you go through these sessions, you'll realize that what we have to offer, the technologies that are available, are very fluid in nature. And you've got to have resiliency. So make sure that it's always available, because we can't afford downtime. Downtime is money for all of us. So, what should you do for your business? And I'm not going to go through this, but clearly standardize, optimize. Look at your project portfolio, look at what is necessary, what is not necessary, and whether it is strategic, not strategic. And look at all the shadow IT you have in your organization, depending on how large your organization is. Try and reduce that cost so that you can spend that money on innovation rather than keeping the lights on. So with that, I really want to thank you for joining us today, and I look forward to interacting with you, many of you, during the day, and certainly look forward to your having a very, very good and pleasant day with us. Thank you.